What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Comments from the Peanut Gallery podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz, sitting here with a special guest, my good friend, the Super Jew, Micah Haas. How you doing, my friend?
I'm fan freaking tastic, man. One of my favorite people to talk to outside the fight game or inside the fight game, and I'm super excited we finally got this opportunity. There's been a couple opportunities for us to talk, and different things have came up to make it so we can't. So I'm glad we finally got this opportunity, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. Long time coming on this side. So real quick here on the jump, we just want to give a quick shout out to a couple of sponsors here on our side with Comments from the Peanut Gallery. We want to give a shout out to www.mmatees.shop. That is these designs like here. There's the Big Toe showcase campaign that's out right now on the site. Everyone from Cody Brundage, Chris Gutierrez, some different martial arts themed apparel and merchandise, stickers, all those sorts of things out there. So make sure that you check out www.mmatees.shop. They are a martial artist and fighter owned company. So make sure that you give them some love out there. We also want to give a shout out to JockoFuel.store. If you go to JockoFuel.store, you can use the code MMA plug for 10% off of anything there in the store. But now, I want to kick this opportunity off real quick. My man, do you have any sponsors you want to shout out?
First and foremost, I want to shout out you because since the
Appreciate
get-go, and this guy actually commentated my very first fight here in Colorado. From the moment, gave me mad appreciation and helped build me. One, I think, as far as a regional scene is concerned, you're top dog as far as one, correct information, two, up-to-date information, and most importantly, supporting us, pushing us, and helping drive us, regardless of what gym and where we're at. And that's one thing, I train Genesis Training Academy. This is Factory X. You're not someone who just pushes media for them, which like someone for me from the outside, that's something I gotta appreciate and respect a lot of. I do want to take that moment to reach out my sponsors. For me, my sponsors are pretty big companies for me. One thing strict, a couple things strict for me when it comes to branding myself. I'm not going to let any company brand me or me brand them that I 100% don't support, don't use in my daily life. Two, 100% American made, American owned, and small based companies. I've had already some opportunities to take some sponsorships from some bigger sponsors through the connections I have, and I've already turned some down, knowing that they don't make their products in America or they can't really prove where they're bringing in their products and things from. But first and foremost, Shoulder, which is a local based clothing brand, just started about a year out here in Colorado. Shoulder, basically the concept is that shoulder to lean on. That's someone to be there for. It is a streetwear alternative, like outerwear, snowboarding, skateboarding, and things like that. But the whole base of the company is one, supporting American company, but two, the whole idea is supporting, especially with men, mental health and mental health studies and mental health support. A large portion of their profits go towards that, specifically for veterans. They started this company off on one of their close friends who was a sergeant in the military who was killed due to suicide after his service. So I am a family member of a lot of military members. I'm also a member to someone who's committed suicide in family. So it's a super big company for me. Fitsoul, which is one of the leading base gyms out here in Denver. We're on Zion Street and we have another location in Littleton. It's a plethora of different types of workout program. There's gonna be a lot, and we'll go through them, not all right now, and bounce around through some of the sponsors. But for now, let's start here. We'll start there. We'll get back to it just because I'll bring it up. One thing I want to give this guy for one, supporting us and just supporting me especially. I have a couple of gifts from a couple of my sponsors. Another one of my big sponsors. And, not every single fighter is involved in cannabis use, and we have to be careful with it. But I 100% do use cannabis. I use cannabis strictly as a medicine. I don't agree with using the terms, weed and getting high and things like that. I think it dumbs down the community that it is. This company, they're phenomenal, Ritual. They're based here in Colorado. They're owned by a close friend of mine named Jordan Gardy. The big thing about these is, nowadays, when you're going into dispensaries, the only thing they're talking about is the level of THC. THC is a great cannabinoid, but there's several other cannabinoids that are very important to your health. These are 1-to-1 ratio. They're the only 1-to-1 ratio that I know. What 1-to-1 ratio means, it's 50% THC and then 50% other leading cannabinoid. So it's not going to be high level THC. You're still going to get a good stimulant and a great buzz off of it, but has other types of great medical benefits for you. So there's 3 different types. Boost, which is the one that you're going to use for your daily amount, as THCV, which is basically your vibrant THC. It's going to cause boosting. It's going to give you a good upper. One that I use throughout my day because I have a crazy brain that goes too fast is Arise. Some people use it as a wake up. It's CBD, which most people are familiar with. It's great for your brain. It's great for recovery. It's great for muscle relaxation. One that I'm addicted to, and I'll use that word because one, I use marijuana every day, is the Doze CBN, which is one of the hardest cannabinoids to get in dispensaries. That thing will put you to freaking sleep. So Ritual, check them out. They're almost in every single local dispensary now. They've been blowing up. Check them out. Try them out. I'm not sure if you are a cannabis user, but if not, I'm sure you have some friends. Awesome. I'm a big fan. 100% locally used products, almost 100% organically made products, 100% organic cannabis-based terpenes as well inside of it. The other gift I got for you is, are you Jewish?
I'm not.
No, but he reps and he supports us so much. I gotta get you one of my Fight Kit shirts, little Super Jew shirt, a little comic book style. Okay. So this is for you. It has a couple of my sponsors on there as well.
There you go. There you go.
This sweatshirt made very well. I'm a little sweaty, so I'm gonna take this off.
Awesome. Thank you, bro.
My absolute pleasure, man. I'm really happy we got this to finally kick off. I was supposed to interview with Jordan about a month and a half ago when I had an opponent for the last Fury card here in Denver. And after my 4th opponent pulled, I had to take on one of his teammates here at Factory X, Alex Rego. And obviously conflict of interest is we had to set it apart. But now that we got that out of the way, we can actually, come back and be a little more civilized, if you want to call it that. And that was a great bout. And I was happy to go with Alex, and that fight was super close. And it definitely could have gone anyway, depending on how you saw it, depending if you felt, submission attempts to be a big point thing and based off that. So I'm happy. You can call it lucky that I got that win. Better be lucky than good in this sport, more or less, right? Mm-hmm. The one thing that, I love talking to Jordan about is, one, we talk big at UFC, but we also talk like the regional scene, the LFA, the Fury scene, all these other promotions, all these other local guys. Colorado is such a mecca for MMA, but it's also so small, especially like my weight class at 125. You're constantly trying to build a plan, your 1-year goal, your 2-year goal, your 3-year goal, and you're thinking, who am I going to fight here? Who am I going to fight there before I get there? And, we definitely have lofty goals and dreams. And one thing we talk about is like, I've been matched up with a couple Factory X guys before. I don't think it's going to be the last time, especially prior to UFC, but I can see myself and other guys, Oscar and stuff like that, fighting each other come UFC and things like that. So I'm excited for that because I'm excited to fight the regional guys. I think a lot of dudes, not this gym doesn't. They face a lot of local, Elevation does, but I notice a lot of gyms specifically leave the state. They try to get out to other regional programs to get like kind of easy wins and things like that. And the fact of the matter is if like you can go 3-4-0 in a Colorado promotions, you're going to look a lot better than if you're going with somebody else and, things like that. But
I totally agree with that. I mean, seeing it from the, my own 2 eyes, whether it's in the gym or on some of our cards with, say, like Colorado Combat Club or something of that nature, there is sometimes where you'll see someone come in and it's not to completely slight or knock a kid coming from some of these different parts of the country, because they can only face who's put in front of them, especially if they're coming from elsewhere.
Right. It's not
but
their fault.
there are some who come from certain parts of the country where they'll have, a 4-2, a 5-1, something like that type of record. And then they come in and, not to, again, like, it's not trying to just share gym tales or whatever, not trying to cross that boundary, but we have amateurs who tool some of these guys who have a good on paper professional record. But that's just the caliber of talent that we have here at Factory X, but then 2, just of what the local scene produces out of here. It's not just us. There's guys who are competing on the big scene from your gym to
Mhm.
Elevation
Mhm.
and so on
Even
and
some
so
of the
forth.
smaller gyms have, a guy or two and things like that.
Right.
Even gyms like I haven't heard of. I'm like,
But
wow, they
at
got this and that. It's
large,
insane.
I just feel like as you mentioned, the concentration of talent, you're getting some of these guys that are coming up on the amateur scene who, whether it's somebody out of Elevation who I think that one of the kids who's the biggest thoroughbreds on the scene right now is Elias Rodriguez, who's still an amateur right now. He's Corey Sandhagen's understudy
Oh
out
yeah, I've seen
there.
this kid, tall kid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just so
he got
smooth.
that one
He's
guillotine choke against
yeah,
the
again
African American
against
kid a
Day.
little while back. Yeah, that
Yep.
kid's yeah.
To win the Colorado
I sparred
Combat
with him a
Club
little bit
title.
at Elevation, and he's nasty.
Yeah.
His
And he's
range
so
his
young
range
and
control is
so
really really
smooth.
good. I literally sparred with him the first time I went to Elevation, and then the first time you go to the gym, you kind of want to like be respectful. You don't want to like try to take people's heads off, but obviously you don't want to get your head took off.
Right.
And I went to go train with Carlos Vasquez.
Carlos Valadez.
Valadez, yes, I always mispronounce his name. I
Yeah.
apologize, my guy. I
Love
appreciate you.
Carlos.
Yeah, and then I'm looking forward to getting more sessions with them and cross training. And again, that's one of the great things I love about Colorado. And like that's the one thing. It's like people talk like gym animosity and things like that. And from the outside, I think like you could see it, but what really is this insane level of competition between like high level gyms. And like today, our coach, I don't know if you, oh yeah, I don't know if you know this, but your guys' coach Mark Montoya and my coach Jake Ramos playing golf right now. So they're having a day out and stuff like that. So like there's that side of the scene where you want to promote your fights, or you want to make it look like something more, and there's that side where you really want to represent your gym and be proud of where you come from. But at the end of the day, we all have mad respect for each other, win or lose. Like it's great to see the regional scene get pushed outside the regional scene. But yeah, when I trained with those guys, Carlos, he's a beast, and we were supposed to
Mhm.
fight. I had a big injury, I had to pull out of that fight, and maybe down the line, me and him fight again. Who knows? I don't think so. I think I'm a true 25er. I think I'm going to stay at 25. I might go back to 35 depending on how my body is and how I put on some weight. That's something that I have been working on a little bit. People think I'm a big 25er. And it's all fake muscle. It's all bloated. I'm not as big as people think. My weight cuts aren't that big, so I think I can put more muscle on, more size, and be Aljamain Sterling of the 25 division, more or less. But when I spar with what's his name,
With Elias.
Elias, Jesus, man, his range is insane. His distance management is insane. And then I'm someone that I feel very good everywhere. So I was like, let's see where I can put this kid. And man, he was throwing up triangles
Oh,
and
he's slick on the
dude,
ground.
he's super slick. And I didn't know who he was necessarily. I saw him fight once or twice. He's definitely a little bit larger than me, but that kid is definitely gonna that kid's definitely gonna be something. And that's what I was gonna ask you. Out of the last like couple of shows that you've been at, because I've been at the last couple of regional shows that you've commentated at. Who else do you think is someone who's going to step up, either like as an amateur now or a small pro, more or less?
Amateur, I think that Elias really is kind of that blue
Dark.
chip
Yep.
type of prospect just because he's so young, he's so good everywhere. He trains with a good camp and has good people around him who are seasoned within the game. And he does have it's he's that next wave, I feel like, of fighters. And I think that there's some who are probably just still, maybe only have a fight or two that,
Sure.
yeah. And
Yeah.
but I'm
A
not
lot of us
ready to
fall off.
give
A lot of those
them
guys can
the
fall off so
the
quickly,
crown
man.
just yet, just because of those first couple of matchups. A lot of times you might be against another debutant or someone that's also within similar on paper experience.
Mm-hmm.
But this kid is now multiple fights deep into his MMA career as far as an amateur goes. He is also undefeated in Muay Thai. I
Yep.
just commentated his last Muay Thai fight
Yep.
a few
Yeah.
weeks
I was
ago.
there. I saw that.
Then as far as grappling, he started as a grappler from a young age. He's that next generation of kid who's been doing everything for a long
Right.
time. And I just feel like once these guys who are kind of teenagers right around and now, there's a kid who's going to be making his debut on the next Colorado Combat Club card, Esley Rascon, who this kid is, he's the second coming of Brandon Royval.
Is he coming
Long
out here? Where is he coming
Yeah,
out?
he's coming out of here out of Factory X. He fights
And he's
a
young, young.
talented kid. Yeah, 19 years old.
Wow.
He's been training here since he was a younger teenager. Just kind of the same how Brandon started with Mark when he
Yeah.
was an
Sure.
early teenager, and
Badass.
they're similar long, lanky builds that are just that never say you just never stop pace.
Yep.
They're relentless. They're good absolutely everywhere that you want to
Wiring
take it.
weird.
Yeah,
The two
and
things that you're not gonna see.
so I think
Corey
that
Dow's crazy with what he does, man.
that's a kid to keep the eye on. But like I say, I mean, he's only about to make his
Sure,
debut, so we
sure.
still have to see how he performs
Who
there.
was it to just was the main event for the Colorado Combat Club?
Carlos Rivera.
Yes, I fought him. He beat me, submitted me. I think, and I don't mean to talk improper about the guy at all, but when I was leading up to fighting him, even not people necessarily in his corner, but people that knew him were saying like, "Hey, this guy's not necessarily someone that like takes it as seriously as he should." Blah 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 blah. He did miss weight against me by quite a few, which I'm okay with. Um, but I've now followed him, and I typically don't follow people like regionally. I typically don't follow anyone that I don't know. I don't follow. Like for me, social media is something that like, I want to see my friends. I don't want to see necessarily influencers.
Mhm.
Even like professional fighters. Like I think the only like UFC fighter I really follow is like Rose Namajunas, because she literally is like my favorite fighter of all time. I think it's kind of important to like put blinders up and don't necessarily like get fed into watching other people's success more or less, and get like addicted to watching others and things like that when you should just be focused on yourself and stuff. But we become like pretty cool when we talk a lot and stuff like that. And I see his work and he grinds, and he looked really good in his debut.
Looked
And
great in that last fight. I mean,
he hits hard. He's the only person who's hit me where I'm like, okay, that's legit. Like,
and
I
he's
don't
a
like that.
dog.
Yeah,
You
he's
know,
a
I
dog.
mean,
He's a dog.
he's dog tough. He's relentless as far as how
He's
he's
doing a lot of good stuff down there too.
definitely, and they have another hot young pro prospect, Elijah
Yeah. Yep.
Swift Smith, who's
Yep.
coming out of there.
Yep.
Gilbert's son,
Yep.
and he comes up and he gets some work up here. I don't know
Yep.
if
I
you
saw
know,
that. I
but
saw that.
look, Gilbert is a legacy here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
he
Yep.
won the RFA world
Yep. I
title as a
remember.
part of
Yep.
Factory X back in the
Mhm.
day, so it's nothing but love between
Yep.
between us there. And I think that kid, I got to see him fight from the very early stages,
Yeah.
coming
And
up
that kid
through the
started
amateur
early,
ranks.
early.
And he Elijah is a kid who you can't teach speed. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things
Yeah.
that you can
Can't
develop
fast
skill
twitch.
wise and all, but to be that fast,
Yeah.
that's just something that you have.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's a kid who has a lot of confidence too as well, and I think that he's only going to continue to grow and develop. He's had some experience with some really good opponents already in his young career. And I think that's going to pay dividends for him in the long term. But I think the guy who he's fought on a couple of those top tier feeder shows, but not really in a like a fixture, like a main event or a co-main yet. But he's fought tough guys in his last couple of fights, in his last three fights, really, is Luis Grillet. Luis Grim Goulet, he just won against Carlos Loyoza or Lozoya, excuse me, a few weeks ago on a Fury card.
Okay.
And I mean, just
Where's he
completely
fighting out?
beat out of here, out of Factory
Oh,
X.
okay.
He is
Wait, what's his name?
Luis Grillet.
Is he at 25 or no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
little 25er,
Yeah,
little
he's knocking everyone out and stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
And that I mean, he's a wrestler.
Yeah,
Like he has a
yeah.
wrestling
His
background.
frame's perfect for
hasn't
25.
he hasn't even had to go
Wrestle at all.
into that yet.
Wow. Yeah.
The only time that he really had to use his grappling
Mhm.
was he did have a tough first round against Rodney Mandala,
Okay.
and
He's
that-
fighting good kids. He's fighting good guys.
He's fighting good
fucking
guys.
just dropping them all.
Before that, just 21 days before that fight, he fought Jason Scott,
Yeah,
who
yep.
Jason Scott is
I
a
fought
really
Jason Scott.
right, is a
Yep.
really top prospect who
Yep.
is highly rated, who
Tough
has
chin. I
traveled the
dropped that kid
world.
twice, and I thought he was out both times, and he recovered quickly.
Yeah.
He did not recover against your boy.
I
It
mean,
was like backhand,
the
right? It was
backhand.
like, well,
that,
backhand.
that was
Those
and-
punches you don't see that get you, man.
Luis is just one of those guys who he has all these physical tools, right? But he's that kid who, when you finally meet someone who has the mental side that goes along
Yeah.
with being physically gifted in what they
right,
do.
Right.
And then on top of it, when it comes to fighting, there's a lot of people out there who have tremendous skill and who have technique for days, but they're not mean.
Don't want to get hit.
And just on top of it, like, on the punishment side, they're not just mean and just want to do everything that they absolutely can to make you feel the most ridiculous level of uncomfortability and pain and whatnot. Luis is not that guy. Luis is the guy who has all of the physical tools to be with some of the best in the world. I mean, he's
nasty.
been body clones for multiple top ranked opponents out of our gym,
Camps
or
and
top ranked
stuff like
guys.
that.
He was bodies for Brandon Royval multiple times.
Sure,
He was bodies for
imagine.
Chris Gutierrez to Jonathan Martin.
He's a big
these
25er.
guys.
He's dense and he's that perfect frame. He's hard to hold. You're not gonna choke that guy. You're not gonna get. He's like a Volkanovski of the 25ers.
Absolutely. And just relentlessly violent, in the process. So I think when you have that combination of someone who has the physical tools, but is also one, just fight smart, and two, he has a geology background. Started off
Sure.
initially going to Colorado School of Mines, then went down to Adams for a better wrestling scholarship opportunity. So I mean, he's a ridiculously smart kid. So him having the ability to process things and critically think on a much higher level, and then once he goes into there, like he just talks about how he wants to find it's almost like something taken out of 300 in a sense, but he's big on the Stoics
Sure. Yeah.
and saying that like when
Gladiators.
we really get down to those bare dog moments of our existence, when we're pushed to the brink, when our legs are so heavy that they feel like our feet are trapped in concrete,
Mhm.
our chest is beating so hard that our,
Mhm.
our heart feels like it's about to explode,
Right.
the lungs feel like they cannot even begin to start pumping blood, your arms are like cinder blocks. But when you get to that moment, you find out who you really are.
Right.
He said
Yeah.
he's still trying to figure out if there's someone who could take him to that point. And when
Sure.
he told me that, I was just like, Jesus,
That's
dude,
great.
like
It's
that,
badass.
that's goosebumps.
That's how it should be. Trying to chase your ego,
And
either
just
destroy or build
knowing
it.
how much of a destroyer that he is
Or is
also in the
already.
process,
Yeah.
and is willing to go and
Yeah. I
do.
see him making it to whatever he wants to do and things like
Yeah.
that. So the correct answer to that though, who is a big up and comer, who's right now making moves,
The Super
is
Jew.
Super Jew. Yes, yes, yes. I gave
See
you a
where you're
huge
leading.
opportunity, but you didn't take it. No, I'm just kidding. But secondly, I'm also kind of ashamed you didn't put the shirt on. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, you don't have to fucking put the shirt on. I'm just fucking with you, buddy. A side note, it kind of sounds like it's on the same tangent, but it's something that I talk about with some people. But all right, so do you think Bo Nichols has that in him? Do you think he's got that dog in him?
I think we haven't had to see it be brought out of him yet, but
No, we haven't at all. But do you think it's there?
I think that you don't get to the level of competitor that Bo Nickel is without having a dog in you, without having, I mean, he's going
There's
through.
dogs, but there's dogs that don't like being hit though. That's what I'm saying. You think that
There
guy's okay
is.
with getting hit, and you think when it's gonna get bad and he gets a broken nose or cut eye or laceration that
That's the
he's
only
gonna
thing
fight
is
through?
I don't want to either crown or crucify him yet
Yeah,
at
yeah,
this
yeah.
point,
Sure.
just simply because we haven't had to see him in that position
No,
yet. Everybody that
I'm
he's
excited to see
fought so
how it is.
far, I think has kind of been a really good opportunity
Perfect,
for him to
perfect
employ
matchup.
his game
Yeah, like
plan.
Jamie Pickett. Like, come on, that was a perfect
Yeah,
matchup
and
for
I
him.
mean let's not act like that finish wasn't initiated by a knee to the nuts.
Yeah,
Like that
facts.
that was
Sure. Yeah, but I don't
absolutely
think that
a
would
low knee.
necessarily. I don't think that dictates a fight,
I
but
don't think that would have dictated the
there should
outcome,
have been
but
an
that
opportunity for.
created the takedown.
Yeah, there
That
should have
created the
been.
takedown that then led to the finishing sequence.
The,
That's more or less my point
the
there.
reason I bring it up is one, I'm excited to see if he does, and you definitely have to have a type of dog to be one of the best wrestlers in the country in the world. Just it's an insane type of work ethic that you have to get. I actually remember seeing him when he was really young. I remember watching Kyle Snyder. I don't know, you know, Kyle Snyder is Olympic wrestler, Olympic gold medalist. I remember watching him when he was like 14 years old in Colas National Room in Maryland, and like it was him and his brother or his cousin. I'm not sure if they were directly related by brother or not, but like he was always getting dogged. He was a little, you know, he wasn't like chubby, but he was not an athletic kid like that. And it's just insane to see what he is. But the reason I bring it up, and one thing I'm excited about, and it affects my division a lot, is you're seeing a lot of these like insanely high level wrestlers, NCAA finalists, Big
Mhm.
Ten champions, All Americans that are like even prior to them finishing out their college career, they're posting on Twitter and Instagram like NCAA champ and then UFC belt after that. I welcome all of them because one thing you will notice there's two types of wrestlers. There's wrestlers that are just dogs and mean, and
Mhm.
there's wrestlers that are really good at wrestling but not good at fighting. And there's been a lot of guys that like Colorado has the Olympic training facility. There's been a couple of those guys that have come around. I don't know if they've been in your gym and stuff like that, but have come in our gym, and their egos, man, can sometimes go like up and down because they're world champs. So they come in and they're thinking they're going to dog you. And then when you submit them after you take them down, they're like, that's confusing. So then when you piece them up on the feet, they hate it and they start taking shots like they're back in, fourth grade and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see all these wrestlers that are getting into it because there aren't enough of it. It's definitely going to change the philosophy, like how the fight game is coming in here. I think in 10 years, it's going to be a bunch of just NCAA wrestlers that control the divisions. But the same time, I welcome a lot of them because a lot of them don't know they're not ready to be fighters and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I could offer the counter because we had a few weeks ago a few top, multiple time All-American guys that came in from all around the country, from OU to ASU,
Oh
Penn
yeah, there's
State, all
definitely
that
there's definitely a lot
that
of them.
came in.
There's gonna be ones that come out.
And there's some though that they are that next generation who
Factual.
just when it's when it's off season, when it's
Yeah.
not wrestling time, they've been working on
Yeah,
the other martial
absolutely.
arts for
Yeah.
years
And when
because
they hang
they've
up
had
the
it
shoes,
just,
they're going to become world champs.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
But there's a
and
lot of them that think that. And I
right that
welcome that
they can
because
just
some of
transition
them
right
aren't
over,
necessarily that.
like kind of the more traditional route, which yeah, but I will say that there's kids like Liam Cronin, who is an All-American out of
Yeah.
Nebraska. There's Kyle Parko, who's an All-American out of ASU. Like whenever those kids decide to make the transition, like bro, they'll come in right now and they will beat probably 90+% of the
Yeah.
majority of the
Facts.
amateur scene out there in their respective weight
We're in
classes.
professional scene, man.
I mean, they would come in and immediately be able to win
Yeah.
pro fights,
Facts. Yeah.
but I'm not a fan of jumping into that immediately.
No, no, no. No.
I mean, and some of them it may, that they're forced into that a little bit early than what they may have potentially
Because there's
wanted to do,
success in
just
wrestling and
because
stuff like that.
then nobody wants to take the fight with them, and
Sure.
then the
Yeah.
only time that they can actually start to get something is professional.
Yeah.
But it's also I just have issue with that because in the modern day, you it's so tough to learn on the job.
Yeah.
You know what I
Facts.
mean? Like I feel
Facts.
like you should have a decent amount or have a few amateur fights underneath your belt to be able to just one figure out what is your game. And then you got to figure out too in the actual heat of the moment in competition. Like it's different when you're out there fighting than when you're in the gym.
Yeah.
How are you going to respond when you get clipped?
Yep. Exactly.
Like when you're on the brink of
But
being put out and finished.
Has
how
Bo
do you
Nickel
respond?
has Bo Nickel figured that out in the room yet? That's the questions I'm always asking when I watch those guys. Because like, have they been clipped hard? Have they never been rocked yet? Have they never been knocked out yet? Have they never like? Hopefully, you've never been knocked out yet. But like, have you taken a shot that like when the 2 ounce
Like
gloves come on? Because those
think
UFC gloves
that,
are different, man.
I would like to think that he's had at least a little bit of awakening to it just based off of some of the people that he's trained with and when he's gone down to places like ATT and whatnot. I would like to think that he's gotten at least some looks. But again, it's all completely different once you're in the heat of competition. And then even somebody like Bo, who he didn't just have to learn as a pro, like how some people, especially if you're in a state, say like an Oklahoma or wherever,
Right.
who they don't really have an amateur scene or
Sure.
certain parts that
Sure,
didn't,
sure.
especially in yesteryear, where you got to turn pro right
Right.
away and you got to go beyond that.
Right.
But you can learn on some of these little shows like your XFNs to whatever else that's within the region and just local shows as a pro against maybe, for lack of a better term, some cans to get yourself a little bit of experience.
Sure.
But Bo Nickel was in the UFC right away.
Yeah. That's
So
crazy.
all of his learning is on the very highest of levels. And it's hard to take steps back if you're immediately thrust into the spotlight.
Yeah. You kind of saw that. You kind of saw that with that youngest kid to ever fight when he.
Well, I
his
mean, we've
last-
seen it
last
with a
fight.
few different examples. We've seen it with, the Chase Hooper's fighting on the card
Right,
this
exactly,
weekend.
yep.
We've seen it with Sage Northcutt. We've
I
seen
think
it
those
with
things
a
were
few
those
that
were a
are
little
extremely
more
young.
noticeable and things like that. Getting on a different point because we shouldn't be talking about giving Bo Nickel this much of our time. Penn
But I mean,
State.
I just feel like overall though, it's a good point to make that some guys they get too eager to make the climb too quick.
They
Though.
do. So I've seen some guys that literally like medalists, in the freestyle and things like this, come train, take one amateur fight, think they're ready, go pro, then get hit hard, and they're like, I don't like getting hit. And you're like,
Yeah.
You're gonna get hit, man. It's like
This is what you signed up for.
It's a guaranteed fact.
Like
But,
something that Coach Mark always says, like, you signed up to get hit, motherfucker.
Right.
Like that's a part of
gonna
what this
happen.
is. Like
gonna
that's
happen.
what it is.
part
Like
of
you
the-
got to
part of the
figure out
fight.
how to push this stuff through.
That's
you
something
know?
I had to do. Like I had to realize that like you're not gonna have 100% success at all times. There's gonna be exchanges you're gonna lose, and what you're gonna do with that. You're gonna go after and just chase a guy and try to get a response, or you're
Right.
gonna settle in and realize you can get back whenever you won, kind of thing. But you went to that one FC event, right?
Yep.
How was that? That was dope.
It was it was an incredible experience.
awesome,
honestly.
dude.
It was
so much fun.
it was a great experience. It's different than a UFC show.
Would you say it's the best show you've been to?
No.
No.
It was a really good show. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like just the overall energy and the atmosphere, especially compared to a couple of the big UFC pay-per-view shows that I've been to,
Mhm.
just didn't compare.
What would you say is the biggest, best show that you've been to? It doesn't have to be biggest, but a show that you felt like was just different than anything else.
Well, UFC 241 out at the I believe it's the Honda Center in Anaheim when Nate Diaz beat Anthony Pettis and then called out Jorge
Okay.
Masvidal that
Okay.
night. Yoel Romero fought Paulo Costa on that card. That was Stipe DC2. Corey Sandhagen fought on that card.
Okay.
We had a couple of my buddies like Ian Heinisch and
Sure.
Devontae
Yeah.
Smith. They fought on that
Yeah.
card.
Okay.
So I mean, just the
Was it
atmosphere
was it the
out there.
fight or the atmosphere that made it so memorable?
I think it was the atmosphere because
Okay.
it was just such a live crowd that in general, that was the first time that Nate had been back in a
Yeah,
while.
yeah,
So it was a very live energy there. But then I saw John Jones fight down in Houston when he fought Dominic Reyes and Derek Lewis was on that card. And just some of the
They
different
hype
like the
out for
fighters
Lewis.
down there. And when Derek Lewis came out to Tops Drop by Fat Pat, bro, like it was
Yeah,
deafening.
I remember watching that. Yeah.
Um
And you saw his whole soul drop because the moment got too big for him and things like that.
He won that fight. He
Okay,
fought, he
did he?
fought Alir Latifi that card.
Okay, it was a
And won that one.
Okay,
But yeah, he doesn't have the greatest record back
right,
home
right.
in Houston. But then also down in Jacksonville, UFC 273, I believe it was, when Volkanovski fought Zombie
Sure.
in the co-main event.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, that was the main event. The co-main event was Sterling and Jan. But the crowd singing Zombie, like Zombie, all due respect to him, he got obliterated in that fight.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere and the electricity of that entrance, bro, like it was something that was
Just
other
memorable.
level. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe one could achieve that same sort of energy, pop, and feeling in a bigger arena if they
Yeah.
continue to grow.
Sure.
But it's also like the traditional one crowd, even when you're watching their broadcasts overseas,
Yep.
the
It's a
crowd
different
is
type of.
quiet
It's a different type of crowd,
once
man.
the fight starts.
I do, and like not to be disrespectful to UFC fans, but it seems like they're maybe a little bit more like involved in the fight and maybe a little like intelligently understanding what's going on. But yeah, there's obviously that Asian culture of like respect and kind of like being quiet and like if you ever watch like sumo competitions, like you're not allowed to talk during sumo competitions because they want to hear them like hitting each other and things like this. But man, the heartbeat while you're fighting,
Yeah,
that
I
was
mean,
crazy.
It's definitely like
Literally, you're
it's
fighting and
cool.
there's a heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom.
What the
boom,
one thing
boom,
that I
boom, boom,
didn't
boom,
like
boom.
was
That was
the
nuts.
was the MC getting on the horn sporadically. Sometimes he was saying like 2 minutes and 30 seconds left.
Yeah,
And
that
I'm
was
like,
so bizarre because
See,
it started off just like 1 minute left, and then every
yeah,
now and
I
then it was
hated
like
it.
2.5 minutes
Like
left. You're
one,
like-
I think like
you're
that
like,
that's
what are
on
you
your
doing,
corner.
dude? Exactly. Yeah.
And then two, like if you're going to do that, you need to do it
Specific
the
time.
same
Yeah,
every
specific
single
time.
time.
Yeah,
Like you
I-
can't just be
We were like making a
radically
joke
doing
about
it.
that, but I
Like-
think the specific time was supposed to be 2.5 and 1 minute for every round, basically.
Yeah, then sometimes you're saying 30 seconds left. Like after saying a minute,
But
like
it did kind of still sound cool.
I don't know. Like for me personally, like I was like, what is
It was
this?
bizarre.
Like that was bizarre to me.
Do you think that will work? That style, that like theatrics, that like the way they do it. Do you think that will have success here?
I think that they
they
need
plan on
to
putting on more shows
continue to sign the right names that are
Yeah.
going to appeal to
Yeah.
stateside
Yeah,
audiences.
yeah,
I think that in the submission grappling department, they've made ventures that direction with signing young up and coming
Yeah.
studs like Mikey
Mikey,
Musumeci to the Ruotolo brothers. I think that's a great move there.
Yep.
Having ties with the Donaher crew, I think that's big.
Yep.
But you know,
all the
I just-
nicest guys in the world, buddy. I got to work the ONE FC event. I was with them all week long, and I was working with the fighters and things like that. Just like basically a chaperone and doing whatever they wanted to do for them and stuff like that. Mikey's legitimately the nicest person in the world. Sage Northcutt is 100% the person he acts like he is in
he
front
made
of the
Mr.
camera.
Faber really happy.
He's literally he's a freaking sweetheart. Faber, who I trained at that gym 15 years ago, it was my very first MMA gym I ever trained at. And that was at their other location way back, Alpha Male. And like he remembered me. I was like, hey, bro. He's like, how do I remember you? I was like, I trained at your gym way, way back. And like I was like, that's the nicest guys ever.
Yeah.
ONE FC signed me. I want to fight for them. So our goal right now is I fight July 7th.
Nice.
We took this fight specifically because it's in Vegas for Tough Enough, and it's the day before International Fight Week. So there's gonna be a huge fight community. hoping that like Sean Shelby and Dana White would be there in attendance. They were there last year when Tough Enough put on the fight there before that. So that's a big reason we took that fight. We might go and look at a 3-fight promotion deal with Fury, dependingly. But I made some awesome connections with ONE FC, and I would obviously love to fight for them. And he said they plan on coming back at least like 3 times the next year, maybe one more time to Denver. But I got to work with like some of their like head production people. I went from being like getting paid as like whatever to them needing people and just me taking initiative and things like that. But I was like talking in this woman named Wen's ear the whole time, and she's like was in charge of everything. I was like, if you're gonna do this again, you have to have an undercard of local fighters, because like that's gonna bring out all the local communities and all their family members. Because like when I fight, I'm gonna bring 50, 60 fighters or fans. So if like you have 10 amateur fighters, 5 fights, you're gonna bring in right there, over 250, depending on how much they bring in, and it will just
That's
make
how
it look
Bellator
better.
does it.
Yeah, it's how Bellator does it and things like that. And I was talking to her and another one of the guys who's like one of the like executives, and he's like, yeah, we're thinking about that, blah blah. But like, they're talking about pay and other different things. It's like I was watching the cost they have to get everyone out here must have been just absolutely insane. And it was a very important,
Immense
dude,
expense.
insane. And that's why they hired me. They didn't want to hire a whole staff of people from there in Singapore and fly them out here for the cost of that. So that's why I ended up having the opportunity to it. Thank God I did, because it was awesome. But that would just build them up so much, because one, it'll build up the American viewers and things like that, because it was really amazing. Colorado is very, 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 very Caucasian. That ONE FC crowd was not. It was like a lot of Asian Americans and things like that. That was just like where they came out of the woodworks for it. And I was like, you want to get everyone, you want to get a combination of everything. You gotta get the American viewers in and things like that. But apparently they did kill it. But yeah. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought the overall, just the opportunity to be there for what could potentially have been Mighty Mouse's last fight, getting to see Rod Tang in person, seeing the
that was the
electric
coolest thing.
personality of Stamp Fairtex,
Yeah.
just seeing some of those. And I mean, there was a couple of really good fights. I mean, RoboCop, it didn't go his way, but that fight was
That was sick.
a banger through and through.
What's the guy he fought? Its name
The Swedish guy, I can't remember his name off the top.
Sebastian something. He was training at our gym leading up to that for like a week and a half. He literally was practicing those elbows like the whole freaking week, like step in elbows and things like
Yeah.
that. And I was it you that was talking or somebody else? I can't remember who I was talking to. Oh no, is so one of my sponsors and one guy who kills it for me. And one thing that I do a lot, and I want to talk about what I do now and where we're going and where I'm growing to and what we're trying to build here. A couple months ago, this whole last year, and every year is tough, right? Like you go through these constant ups and downs, and like if you ever think life's gonna get easy, you're stupid. Life just gets tougher and tougher. Every year I've always tried to like judge myself as a professional, and like also like try to add every fight you win or lose, you want to add something onto your fight game, either if it's how you train or how you eat or how you operate or how you think and things like that. And then like simultaneously in the fight game, you got to deal with life, and like life hits you so hard that you have to put that into your fight games. Like, how am I going to deal with this while I'm in fight camp and things like that and things like this. But like the last year has been a crazy, crazy year. I lost my mom, about 6 months ago almost to cancer that came insanely fast. And both my parents are quite old, so it's not something that I haven't pre-planned in my life already. But that my mom is my favorite person ever. I know from me commenting most of my fights, pre-fight and post-fight, the first thing I say is I love you, mom.
Yeah.
So that was really, really tough. I'm a big giver, and I find myself that when I'm in a relationship, I become very committed to people too much, and especially as a professional athlete, it has to be very selfish.
Right.
You can't do that. So I was in a relationship that wasn't a bad relationship, but it definitely was. Look how nice I am for production, guys. Look at this. You should sign me for production. That just consumed way too much of my energy, soul, and money. So I had to get rid of that out of my life. And then I had a great job where I was making, 25 hours a week, making $80,000, so working with my schedule, doing everything I wanted, thinking that I was able to do all of it, and then realizing like I can't do all this, and we went our separate ways with that business, and like all these things happened all while I was getting ready for my pro debut. I was dealing with some medical issues. We thought I had cancer and things like that. We thought I had a type of rare skin cancer, and right after my mom died, it freaked me out. So
Oh, yeah.
all training camp up for my pro debut, like my mindset was crazy. But it wasn't necessarily crazy. Like it was, I controlled it. I basically said that like the more I lose, the better it is for me because the less I'll have in my way. I can focus on the fighting and things like that. And you know, it's been wonderful. All the hardship has been wonderful for me because it's like, you know, if you can survive that, have 4 different opponents pull out, have to fight a tough guy from Factory X on week and a half notice for both guys tough. You know, if I can get through that, we can get through anything, right? And that's kind of the thing I was talking about, you know, with wrestlers and things like that. Wrestlers do have that mindset, but like not all of them are fighters. And it's interesting to see how some people are affected by it and what they do and how they choose to respond to it and things like that. But yeah, it's just a crazy fight game. It's crazy what it does to you, what it does to your mind, your ego, and you sometimes feel like you have to fake your ego to keep your ego going to make sure you won't wake up in the morning. And then some mornings, you know, you wake up and you realize your ego is not perfect state where you can just kill it no matter what, or even when you're not in the mindset to do it or anything like that. But yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about and one thing I wanted to basically give you the opportunity to have is me talking about my fight story, why I do this. You know, what's my purpose and goals and things like this. And I have a few goals with it. One thing I get, but I really cannot stand when I hear like fighters say this, that like, oh, I do this for my family, or you know, I do this for my kids, I do this to provide something for my family, and this is the only way I know how. You know, there's that like it's a rhetorical statement, but there's that statement when you know told make a coal miner, what do you call it? Someone who can do computers, what do you call
Yeah, I
it?
mean,
Coding, make a coal miner
you're doing it
coding.
for yourself.
Like, yeah, we're doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for our own ego. If it really came down to you, like, and you know, there are amazing stories. You know, like you know, Charles Oliveira coming from Brazil and making fortunes for his family. Obviously, that is that what should have been done. Great for him.
And I think this should be prefaced by saying if
Yeah,
you're in a different part of the world or a
yeah,
third
yeah,
world
exactly.
country,
Yeah,
it's a different
exactly.
story
It is 100% different story.
versus
Yeah,
if we're
France
saying
and
like
Ghana and
doing
things
it
like that.
here in
Exactly.
America.
We have so many opportunities in America, regardless you're intellectual, you can make money in any way. And I've made money in a lot of different ways. It's with and without a degree, you can absolutely do it. So like when people say, "Oh, I do this because of that," it's like it's crazy that you have success because you're lying to yourself like every day. Because the reason we do this is for ourselves. Because one, this is the most selfish sport that there is. One, we destroy our bodies. We are utterly destroying our minds. So, sooner or later, you're going to have to face the knowledge that CTE is going to creep up on us. And you know, your probability of success is probably the smallest of almost any sport. One, not because of field amount of people, but two, because you got strike lightning, right? You got perfect timing, perfect age, you know, perfect fights, no injuries, none of this, you know, nothing in life getting in your way. So it's like it's crazy when people say like, "Oh, I'm doing all of this for myself." So one, the reason I fight, I do it for myself. I do it.
And it's shit money till you get to the top.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me, it's shit money. I make yes, and that's why we're gonna talk about the 5 different things I do to make sure I can do this fight game now. Because again, every fight I try to say I'm a true professional, and you know every fight and every week I'm adding something on, becoming more and more professional. Quit my job, and now I'm teaching a lot and stuff like that, and that something has been insanely rewarding. I've always been a teacher and things like that. But on the tangent that we were just talking about, so it's my ego. My ego is disgusting. And one thing in my classes I talk to people is ego is teaching ego. We should be able to control ego. We should understand our ego. We should know when we should have a elevated ego, and there are times for that, and there's times when we should have the opposite. We should be able to pull down our ego and be humble and knowledgeable that we don't know what we're talking about and things like that, which is something that's hard for me naturally. I'm egotistical, 100%, narcissistic, 100%. I think every fighter basically is. I think anyone who wants to be an individual star in any way is.
And that's not just athletics, though. That's the person who wants
Sure.
to be that top entrepreneur
Exactly.
out there in
The
the
best.
business world,
Yeah,
or if
exactly.
you're in the corporate world, climbing the ladder
Yeah.
and trying to be that C-level executive. You know,
Yeah.
like that's anybody who's on the high level. You've got to have a certain amount of selfishness and
Yeah.
blinders to it
Yeah.
because
Blinders.
if you
Exactly.
don't, then
You'll get consumed. Yeah.
you're never going to get to those types of levels that are at the top of the mountaintop.
Yep. If you drag a lot of people with you, you're not going to get that far. And it is sad that, like, they say there's not a lot of friends at the top and things like that. And I'm nowhere to the top. But one thing I've had to do is cut off a lot of friends. I would never cut off family. I've lost too many of my family. I've cut off my family, and luckily I have family in position now that they're in good places. But I've had cut out a lot of like long-standing relationships because it's just not serving me and my selfish intent of where I want to be in the future and things like that. So yeah, I fight one to keep my ego down and to keep my ego high. And one of the other biggest reasons I fight, which one, I love that it is becoming more and more popular to talk about, and I see fighters talking about more and more. But at the same time, I really am upset with how I'm seeing it talked about in certain ways, and I want to address it is mental health and things like this. I come from a family. I'm the youngest of 5 brothers. I've lost half my brothers. I lost one of my brothers to police brutality. He was killed by cops in a chase because he didn't strap his seatbelt on. I lost another brother when I was 13 years old to committing suicide. And that was the hardest thing in my freaking life. He was my best friend. And, that put a lot of darkness inside myself. And I've dealt with suicide tendencies and deep, deep depression all throughout my life. And I've been someone who self-manifestation, I've been a therapist and things like that, but luckily I've just been in having good surroundings and being in a good place and having a mind that's like been able to process it through all the craziness that I had to go through as a childhood, because I went through some insane stuff that was basically like, I've made it through this, so I can get through this. It's the kind of thing I've always been able to tell myself. And
Go through it to get to it.
yeah, exactly. Go through it to get to it. Exactly. I love that. But the biggest thing is, you saw like Patty talking about it and things like that. He had a friend like commit suicide. He was just talking to him the other week and things like that. I know, in my darkest times, I've reached out to people and be like, hey man, I'm not feeling so good. I'm feeling really bad, or even, hey, I'm feeling suicidal. And what you get from most people is, oh, me too. Or I understand, man. And that's like the worst thing that you can say to somebody who's feeling that. Because if you say, I understand, one, it doesn't really give you an opportunity to lead anything on. Most people are like, oh yeah, I understand where you're coming from, man. Like, I'm sorry you're there. And they think that's it. And you're like, man, I just released to you one of the hardest, darkest things to say. It's the most embarrassing, hardest thing to ever say to somebody, is like that, to say that. So when they respond, I understand, or, oh, I know what you're going through, man, this whole last week's been so hard for me. That sends people in some really, really dark spirals. And I've seen it. I've been there. I've seen it done to friends. And I've been on the opposite where I understand. I'm like, oh, my friend's calling me right now at 1 a.m. Not because he's had a drink or he wants to talk about some video game. He's calling me right now because he might not go to the next morning and things like that. And there's ways that are really easy to identify that. And there's better ways that I think we can go about dealing with it. And that's one thing that I'm really big about, is I want to get about, yes, suicide prevention, but suicide prevention comes with suicide education, and education comes with talking about it. And talking about it just doesn't mean, hey, I'm depressed, because every single one of us, we all talk about, we're all depressed. And that's one of the things I talk about. And I train my clients is have the ego, it's much, I don't want you, going out there looking for fights. You better be a pacifist in your lifestyle and, help the person out that needs it. But at the same time, don't walk around with your chin down. Love yourself. Be egotistical. Understand that you're badass. You're living in a hard place to live in, hard world to live in, a hard time to live in, like, and you're surviving it. Like, applaud yourself. And so many people nowadays are insanely depressed, and some of them don't understand they're maybe not necessarily as depressed as they think they are, and their life isn't as bad as it is. But that's not our place to say this. But there's a lot of ways that we can start educating ourselves properly. And the best way that we can, there are a bunch of different types of ways of doing it, but easiest way, don't make it on someone else to reach out. If you have a sad friend, I guarantee you, he's sad. Like, we all have, all my friends know that sometimes they don't hear from me for a couple weeks to reach out to me. And like, sometimes I haven't reached out to him for 3 weeks because I'm insanely busy. Sometimes I haven't reached out to him in 3 weeks because I'm insanely depressed. And that text I get from them, opens up the clouds and brings sunshine, and it's huge. So on that little tangent, just talk to people, reach out to people, be a good friend, be a good family member. If you haven't called your mom and your dad, if you look in your last call log and they're not in that call log, you should be calling your mom and dad. You should be checking in with these people that are important to you and that you're important to them and things like that. So that's one of the big reasons I fight for. I want to make that. I fight strictly, one, because I'm fighting my own depression. Fighting helps with my depression. It helps me, is my therapy. Getting punched and getting choked, you don't get to think about anything else but to breathe and not get punched and choked. So it doesn't give you opportunities to do the woe is me game and things like that. I want to bring understanding to how we should address this and how identifiable it is. Because, a lot of times you're like, oh man, like, I had no idea. And like, that's crazy. You had an idea. Like, there's no way there weren't signs and effects like that. And then, the other reason I fight is because I think I'm pretty damn good at it. And I love it. And it's something I've been doing my whole life. I'm the youngest of five boys with a German father, military background and things like that, Jewish community background, which means we're doing a lot of service. We're doing a lot of, like training of things like that to be a community server and things like that. I grew up with crazy, crazy brothers. My oldest brother was a neo-Nazi, which is the most, what do you call it?
Anti-Semitic.
Well, yeah, it's obviously anti-Semitic, but like, what do you call it when you're against
Oxymoron.
oxymoron? Yeah, a Jew that hates Jews. Which we're the most self-loathing people in the world. But he took it way too far. So I grew up with, and he was gang life his whole life, and I saw that guy die 3 times before he finally did die. He lived a crazy life, and I grew up getting my ass beat by them my whole childhood. And when I was, 14, 15, I was insanely aggressive and really mean. And luckily I found MMA at 15, and wrestling wasn't enough. MMA is really what like set me to be a martial artist and to understand that pacifism is what is manly, and holding your anger and controlling your tongue and things like that is what makes you, a real martial artist and a real man and things like that. And I found out that I was really good at it. I had a lot of success early on. I was competing in a lot of jiu-jitsu competitions, some that aren't around like anymore, like Grappler's Quest, which is a huge Eastern national competition. I won that back-to-back years when I was 16, 17 years old. And then, life got a hold of me. Depression and things like that got a hold of me. I had some severe injuries. When I was 19, I broke my entire face, which I think we talked about a little bit on I think our earlier
Yeah, one of our earlier
that we've done.
podcasts.
And, I take my whole teeth out and 44 breaks in my mandible, cut my tongue off, broke my jaw on both sides. And it wasn't the first time I broke my jaw. And it was just like, this is stupid. Like, why am I pursuing this sport? This makes no sense, blah, 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 blah. Just to, chase money for the next 60 years in doing real estate, which I was wildly successful with. And that was that was one thing that crushed me, is like, when you realize I grew up very, very poor, that money isn't going to bring the happiness. So I realized, the more money I had in my bank account, the less time I had, because I was working all the time, but the more depressed I was. I was like, man, I thought this was going to bring me happiness. The fight game isn't for me. Maybe chasing success monetarily is for me, and it wasn't. That's what really scared me. Gave me a wake up call when I was 25 years old and said, I got to chase this. I got to chase this till the wheels fall off. I got to chase this until I said, there's no excuses. I did everything I can possibly do to say I did this. And, I've been here almost 6 years now, and I'm about to turn 31. And I think, for my age, I'm in a good place to get where I want to go. The people that we need to know me and stuff like that. I think one of the biggest things in a fight game that a lot of people don't understand. I was just having this conversation with this, typical 55-year-old MMA fan, that the best fighters in the world are not in the UFC. The best fighters in the world aren't even the best promotions. The relationship to the best fighters and the guys that can promote themselves the best are the best fighters. If all the best fighters were in the UFC, it would be 100% all Dagestanian, Russians, and guys from Africa. That's all where all the money would be going. That's all we'd be doing. There are guys in the UFC. There's plenty of guys in the UFC right now that they, make their fights for them and will, not fight certain guys and will only fight these guys and things like that, specifically because of their skill sets. And they know that they don't have the skill sets, or will never get the skill sets, or nor were trained to get the skill sets to beat those fights. And they have that little niche because of their popularity and their notoriety and their personality. And that's why they're in the UFC. Yeah, the great fighters. You have to be a good fighter first. That's the most important thing, obviously. But I truly believe there are some insanely great fighters that we don't know about. I think Bellator has a lot of insanely good fighters, and you see a lot of them just don't get fights. So you sit on the promotion with fighting once a year, twice a year at most, because no one wants it.
They do. I mean, but I do feel though that on the overall macro level, the greatest concentration of talent for fighters definitely is within the UFC.
Absolutely.
And then also
Everyone's growing. They're
as
getting
it
closer.
relates to
But
they are, and to a certain extent, but it's also, I mean, it's something that, I mean, I feel like it's finally by some organizations starting to get addressed, but no other major organization has the anti-doping policy the way
Right.
that the UFC does, and the UFC by no means is
When
popular.
When FC does, they were dope. They were test doping those guys all week long, bro.
But the tests that really run for
Yeah,
all of
the
the
cost
full
of a
panel,
USADA test is so
you
different
know,
than
for something that
something
runs
that they're
for all the
using.
stuff like EPO to
Yep.
all of those things.
Yep.
Because I mean, hey, all due respect to one, but
There's
there
some
is
dudes on there
no
that look
chance
fucking
in
insane.
hell that they are natty.
Yeah.
There's just no
There's
fucking
there's
chance.
definitely some that
Like
just they can't be.
there's zero chance that some of those guys are, and
The
there's
one African man that's been
nothing
around for like
otherwise.
ever.
England and Galani.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like
yeah.
that
No,
dude's
there's
just,
zero chance that some of these
he's
guys
definitely
are.
not clean.
And I mean, hey, like it is what it is, and especially like
Do you
to
think
me,
that do you
like
think that is the case in UFC? Do you think that is 100% clean?
I don't think it's 100% clean.
No.
No, no, but I do think that
It's
at
a lot
least,
better, obviously.
but I know with some guys, even just the threat, it's
Yeah.
enough of a deterrent not to do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the threat of it and
It's
stuff
just
like
the
that.
threat of
Yeah.
the and the potential for it. And then, I mean, you all the way up until this point, we hadn't seen a mass bust from somewhere like PFL, but PFL just had an entire run, including Tiago, who fought my boy Rob,
Yeah. What
who
they're doing is insane.
I mean
Francis
that
Ngannou and all that. That stuff is awesome.
I think that it's a big
Doesn't really
move,
make sense
but
though. Doesn't really make sense though.
for me, if you're Francis, it's not a bad business move, but
For him,
it's
great.
but legacy as far as your fight
He don't
career.
give a damn about legacy.
That's
And
where I mean, I guess it depends on what's ultimately important to you. And did you want to leave the legacy as being one of the greatest champions ever, or
sure,
did you want to leave the legacy of being someone who opened doorways and
for other fighters and things
was
like that.
a
Which it
martyr
seems
for a
that's
cause,
seems
whatever?
the case. But I know for him, he's literally said, I before that, like he doesn't love fighting and he took this as an opportunity for for wealth. And when you come from extreme poverty,
Right.
it's not inappropriate for that to make it your drive.
But I also feel like it's not necessarily Micah to say that he was ducking John Jones or that he was scared of John Jones or anything like
Sure,
that.
sure.
I'm not trying to say that necessarily, but I do believe there is something to be said that he might have been scared to put his power and his legacy on the line.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I say this just from the standpoint of all of the peacocking, all of the contractual standoff, all of that went on, that could have been done after the John fight. He
Yeah,
could have had a fight
for sure.
with John and then decided to go this route. You know what I mean? Like that could have been something that he did.
If he definitely
and-
knew he was going to win that fight for sure, because the stock's worth a lot more. But
Right, but
yeah.
that's the gamble
Yeah,
that you're
exactly.
taking, right?
Yeah,
And
the
if you're
defense of his
really
legacy.
trying to have that legacy of being the greatest
You got to fight the greatest. You gotta fight
champion
the
of all
best.
time, there is that's the golden platter. Put a bow on it. You're fighting who is considered the arguable GOAT on
Yeah.
many people's lists. And I feel like in terms of like a fight IQ, all of that, for me, it's John. Like
Yep.
that's my
It's John,
personal
it's
GOAT.
John and DJ. I don't think it's
Yeah.
like for me. It's those two.
But yeah, with John though, like I just feel like that or the opportunity to fight John, if Francis would have fought John and then he wins, then he has even more leverage and even more bargaining power. He can have
It's a hard
even
thing,
more doors.
hard thing to do though. Obviously,
It is, but that's where I say, like, I feel like personally, he did not want to risk
No, I
his
don't think
power play position and the leverage and the bargaining
Yeah.
power that he had for the negotiations
100%.
in that realm.
he would got insanely paid for that fight as well. So it's I
Right.
think that's one of the things that we can say is like everyone said the reason he didn't take the fight is because the money wasn't good enough. But it turned out money was the what he asked for. The money wise, it was other things that he wasn't going to get. And obviously, UFC is just too big of a promotion to be able to do that. They can't change the whole fundamental, how they do things, rightly so. But PFL doesn't. I think it doesn't necessarily make sense. I don't think Francis Ngannou is that big of a draw. But doing all of that
Agreed.
is going to create something for them. It's just going to expand. It's not going to blow up their promotion that big. I don't think.
He's fought an average of once a year since like
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah, I think
so-
what PFL is doing now is sick. One, they're paying the fighters a lot too. I love the cameras, the ref cameras, inside cameras they do and stuff like that. But yeah, it's interesting that they're there. But I tell you what, John Jones versus Cyril Gane was the easiest bet in UFC history. When he came out as a freaking plus 100, I literally put my whole bankroll on that. I was like,
man,
please and
like,
thank you.
there was no
was
way that
disrespectful,
John was
man.
going to come out of that fight not the victor. One, just even going into it, but then two, when John is going through or just gets right that final checkpoint before he walks up the steps, gets into the cage,
Yep.
he has his
Yeah.
trunks hiked up,
Yep.
and then he just starts smacking the shit out of himself
Yep.
all over the place and roars. That gave me an electrifying chill and goosebumps.
Yep.
Are like, oh, there is no way that this man is even gonna get
Yep.
touched. I
Yep.
mean, or even be threatened in any sort of position. And he goes out there and he wrecks shop against Cyril Gahn. But yeah, I mean, that's just the type of guy that John is, though, But I feel like even but from the PFL side, just to circle back to that with Francis and that deal, I think that from Francis and the PFL side, you better hope that you acquire Bellator at the end of the year.
Is that their ideas? Something like
Yeah,
that?
they're in the process of potentially trying to acquire Bellator
Wow.
by the end of the year.
That's insane.
If they do, that obviously that gives him a roster and some names of some guys that he can
A
go
huge
out there
roster. They have a
and
huge
fight.
roster.
But as it is right now in the PFL, there's a significant share of their heavyweight roster who just popped in this whole wave of guys in this
Oh, I
drug
saw that.
testing
I saw that. I saw
situation.
that. I saw that. Huge. A lot of dudes.
And then also, I was talking with one of my really good fight friends, a coach who's as deep into the weeds of the fight game as I am, or more in terms of knowing who people are. And I just asked him, like, right off the top, can you tell me what the name of the PFL heavyweight champion is? The guy who won it last year. Could you tell me who it is? Could you tell me?
No, no, no. Well, no, no. I know that you guys have a guy who just
The light heavyweight champion.
that's a light heavyweight.
Yeah.
The guy that you guys had to win.
But in
No,
terms
no,
of Francis's
no.
division,
I
who
can
he's
probably name
coming
I can name
into
like maybe 5 people in the whole
on
PFL
the whole roster.
roster themselves,
Right.
and most of them are guys that have come into the limelight because of their lack of success in UFC or on Dana White Contender Series and things like that and stuff like that. So no, I know their roster is not that great, not that huge, and
Right.
not to say it's not that great because of course I don't know it not well enough to say this or anything like that, but it definitely is crazy to put money into someone like Francis Ngannou because like
It
yeah,
made sense to me though. I'll be honest with you, dude. Like I have it's on record for the record.
yeah,
We said it on the MMA plug months before he was even in the free agent situation.
yeah,
Said I think that his next fight is going to happen outside of the UFC and it's going to be in PFL.
Hmm.
Then a
Good
few
call.
months later, that's when the picture surfaced of Francis, and I can't remember if it was his mom, his aunt, or whatever. It was a
Mom, right? Yeah,
relative
was wearing the
that was
PFL
wearing the
shirt.
PFL
Yeah,
shirt.
right.
But it just made too much sense. Where does he train when he's here in the States?
No, sorry, I don't know.
Extreme Couture.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Whose house is that? That is Randy's and Ray Cefo's. That is
Is that and that's who has PFL?
that's PFL.
Really?
That's
See, I don't
the
know
those
the
are
guys who
big
own
fixtures within the organization at
Randy Couture.
PFL. Randy Couture.
Interesting.
Randy does commentary for
I know
him.
he does comment. Yeah, he does do the commentary.
So
That
he's
makes
got
sense now.
he's got a big lead in there, and then Cepho just the same, So there's direct ties and immediate connections there with the PFL. So that was just my
So there's a guy
intuition
kind of
thinking
whispering in
about
his
it.
ear, more or less. Who's
I
close
mean, could very well have
coaches,
been, and
friends,
who
and things
knows
like
if
that.
down the way there's some sort of antitrust lawsuit or some sort of like whatever the legal collusion or tampering sort of thing is. You never know
Yeah.
if that's something that comes about, but I'm not surprised just based off of that connection right then and there between the two
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
But that is a good opportunity for us right there just to catch a quick break and throw to our sponsors real quick. What's up, guys? I know that you're all out there crushing the day, but did you know that you might be able to unlock some new levels to your human performance? Well, our partners over at Jocko Fuel have the perfect product lineup out to be able to help you maximize your full potential. Everything from supplements and vitamins all the way up through your protein powders, your greens with over 20 organic superfoods in the mix, to an anti-aging matrix, and some compounds that help you fight the fatigue as well as those times when you might be feeling a little bit sick. That is Jocko Fuel. Use the code MMA Plug and get 10% off of your order today. What's the deal with all those cool t-shirts? Well, that is our partners over at www.mmatees.shop. MMAtees.shop is an incredible martial arts and fighter-owned company that produces original artwork and designs that also offers the most equitable split on the market for any of the fighters featured out there. Once again, any of your purchases go to the direct benefit of the featured fighter out there. If you go to www.mmatees.shop today, you will find some exclusive new merchandise that you will not be able to find anywhere else. All right, and we are back. Want to give a quick opportunity for Micah to shout out a couple more of the people on Team Super Jew.
Yeah, but just a side tangent that we were talking about. We talked about this before, and the betting world's kind of a weird world, especially when it comes to MMA. But like, yeah, that John Jones was the easiest money ever. And there's a lot of easy money to be made on the UFC cards. So his last card, literally, if that Korean woman would have won, we would have hit every single fight right. And I lost a few parlays because of that, but we still did great. One person, if you guys follow MMA, which I'm sure you guys do if you're watching this commentary, is go check out on Instagram, free UFC fight picks. He's a guy that lives out here in Colorado. He's a sponsor of mine, financial, and big promoter of me on social media and things like this. He promotes a lot of fight game. He goes to all the fights. He is not only an MMA guru, he does a lot of other sports. He has a large group of people on Patreon that come together for different sports and things like that. But as far as UFC cappers go check it out. He posts every single one of his bets. I post some of my bets. I don't typically post the big ones because I find it to be a little bit, egotistical and things like that. But that guy I think is like 87 units up, which is for him 87,000. For me, I'm not nearly close to that because I'm not putting the bets that he is, but we absolutely kill it. You guys should be looking at that. You guys should be messaging him, tell him that I sent you. You should follow him. You should do his Patreon. It's $5 a month. It's absolutely absurd. He has all types of awesome giveaways. Gives away Demetrius Johnson gloves the other day and things like that for free and things. It's a lot of fun. Some of other sponsors, restaurants, Upholt and Boulder. They're down in Cherry Creek area. They started out a food truck that I would go and visit every now and then when I lived in Littleton. So nutrition for me is insane. I've always been a self-proclaimed nutritionist. I've always studied nutrition in a very, 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 very deep fashion. My nutrition to myself is really important. I've been vegan for 2 years before. I was pescatarian for the last 4 years. I'm now basically eating a full diet and things like that and testing that out. And so I've been having a lot of success with this. And kind of like, it's just stemming off depression. I literally had so many different health issues that I thought were because of my different ailments that I have, things like Lyme disease and things like that. And it turned out basically just depression caused me the inability to like digest food properly and things like that. And now I'm eating differently and things like that. And nutrition for everyone's different. But kind of was going off that. I get hit in the head a lot, and sometimes you lose where you're going off of it.
You're talking about nutrition,
right?
Sponsors, the restaurant.
That's right. Upholt and Boulder. My apologies. So for a food truck, when I saw them, the food was insanely healthy and delicious. I was like, this is crazy. I reached out to him like a year later, and this guy has this whole new restaurant now and everything like that, and does insane catering. He actually is getting into nutritional building, so he's going to be starting to help me with my nutrition. We're going to be doing a week on, week off, where I do my own meal prep. He does my meal prep and things like that. He's going to be opening that up to the public as well. They do catering events. They're unbelievable. They're absolutely delicious and extremely well priced. But he's been an amazing representative for myself as well. Lastly, I'm not gonna mention all my sponsors, take up all you guys' time. Denver Underground Comedy. There's a lot of comedy clubs in Denver. Denver has a great comedy scene. I absolutely love comedy. I plan on post fight life doing stand up and stuff like that. A lot of the comedy places around here, I love them all. They get a lot of big name people, a lot of mid name people, but there are a lot of repeating acts. You're gonna see the same act that you could watch on YouTube. Denver Underground Comedy is amazing. They have a lot of local guys, a lot of small base guys, and then a lot of big time guys, and they specifically make sure they get guys on their first acts. So you're not gonna see anything that has been done for a year and our old jokes and stuff like that. They are almost always sold out for all their shows. They absolutely kill it. But if you ever get an opportunity, go check them out. That's a fun date night. They're wildly better priced than most of these comedy clubs. I was in Baltimore 7 years, which is one of the comedy meccas of the U.S., more or less. And I used to go see huge names for less than what you'll spend at some of these other places. You'll see some of these names at his place for significantly less cheaper. And instead of them trying to making you get 2 drinks, they give you drinks and pizza. So it's a win-win. Go check them out. But stemming off that, more things that, what am I doing? What am I pursuing? Things like that. We talked about how, I basically, every fight, it seems, every week, it seems, maybe every day, I reassess my life and see where I am at a mental, physical, and professional standpoint. And every day you find out that there's something that you can do better, which is great. Some of the biggest things I've implemented as far as like training goes is swimming and running. Reasons why: swimming for great recovery and active workouts, but more importantly because I absolutely hate both those things. I didn't grow up learning how to swim and things like that. My brothers used to basically almost drown me all the freaking time in the ocean. We grew up in Cali, so I was always scared of the water. And then running, I definitely don't have the body made for it, and injuries have made it, where it's not fun, but I still do it. And doing that physically, yeah, my cardio is better, and I definitely showed that in my last fight against Alex. If you go back and watch that fight, it is a dynamic fight. It's a weird fight. We get in a lot of interesting, unique, crazy positions. The pace of that fight was absolutely insane, and I was really, really happy I was able to keep that pace. But when I look back on it, I don't think it was because of the running itself. It was because I was doing stuff I didn't want to do, making myself uncomfortable every single day, destroying my ego and rebuilding it every day, saying like, oh my goodness, I can run this much, I can do this much, surprising myself. That's been one of the biggest things. My nutrition's been a really big thing. Getting rid of different type of outside environments that haven't been healthy for me has been a big part of it. Quitting a job that was great for me to really make it so I have no excuse to say that if this doesn't work, where do I go? If this doesn't work, I'm going to be consider myself a failure. I'm going to have to go refine a new business, a new thing to chase and pursue. But one of the things that I'm doing now that is going to set me up for the future is I've got all my licensing. I'm starting my LLC. Bye, be your best you. What that is I individual and group training. I do women's self-defense on Wednesday evenings over at FitSoul, one of my gym sponsors and things like that. It's a CrossFit like workout with centering around building a strong woman's ego along with self-defense techniques and turning them into absolute killers. Some of the girls in that class are legit killers right now, and it's amazing seeing what they can do, especially when I have certain privates that are, guys that think they are doing what they think they can do, and there's these women that can easily kick their butt. But I do individual private sessions as well, and that stems from everything from healthy stretching, healthy nutrition, all the way into self-defense, and all the way into teaching and getting someone ready to compete, amateur or pro if they want to. I have one of my guys, Johnny, who's the owner of FitSoul. He's going to make his Muay Thai debut here in the next month over at 5280. I'm really excited about that. He puts in the work and stuff like that. But I definitely give a unique experience. There's a lot that I have to offer. And I'm a Jew, so I do know that money is the ultimate goal, but my prices are insane. Comparative to a lot of my other teammates and other people that are doing this and on the level and knowledge that I am. I went to school for biology and things like this. It's something that's been around my whole life. It's an awesome bang for the buck. I train at Genesis, which obviously I need to mention. They are the basis of everything that I'm at here. It's one of the big reasons I came to Colorado. I actually came here. This was the first gym I ever looked at when I first moved to Colorado. It was just too big for me. I'm kind of a guy that needs both negative and positive reinforcement daily. So being in a big gym, it didn't fit perfectly for me, and maybe it was a little bit of a big fish complex. I was like, I don't think that I'm set for this. But Genesis has been my home. It's been a perfect fit for me and amazing for me. He's given me a lot of opportunities. One of the opportunities is I teach also kids MMA. We do our little ice class at 4:15 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that ranges from 8 to about 12. And then starting Tuesdays and Thursdays, I believe we're going to be doing at 6:30. I'm going to have our elite kids. It's going to be about 13 to 18 years old, dependently, and we'll surface them into our other programs. And on top of that, I know you guys just recently did this with one of your guys' fighters, but we are now going to be a licensed associate with Rec Council Wrestling. I'm going to be teaching Rec Council. So we'll have our whole program out there where we're going to provide everything for the kids. I've coached wrestling over 4 years. I've coached for rec and high school. I coached for one of the best wrestling high schools in Maryland, North Carroll, which is where I graduated from. I actually just recently looked up my stats because apparently this is kind of important to be able to give people this. Over 100, I think 112 wins, 50 pin club. I have the Maryland state record for most tech falls in a single season. That's all I wanted to do my senior year. I didn't want to pin anybody. All I wanted to do was tech falls. 2-time state finalist, Division I wrestler for a year. I wasn't a D1 wrestler by any means. Went and wrestled D3 and had fun doing that. But these kids are going to learn a lot. We're going to teach them amazing wrestling. We're going to teach them health, nutrition, mental health, and things like that. We're going to teach these kids, which I think a lot of programs, and I don't mean to diss any programs, but I have seen it with some of the kids I brought on into my programs, is they're teaching them all the things physically, but they're not teaching them how to be a good martial artist. They're not teaching them how to be humble, how to be pacifist in situations, how to avoid conflict, and how to protect kids that can't protect themselves. I'm not saying that there's certain gyms that are making kids, young bullies, but I've seen it in my classes, and I've removed kids from my classes before because of that, things like that. So one of the fundamental things that is really important to me when I'm teaching youth, especially, and I'm teaching a variety from youth all the way to 50-year-olds, is making sure that these people are not taking what I'm teaching them and using them in inappropriate ways. I want to build these guys' egos. I want to build their confidence. I want to build their mental happiness. I don't want to build them into something that is a threat to society and things like that. So message me out on Instagram, superjew_MMA. Reach out to genesis.com. Reach out to any of the coaches there, Jake Ramos, me as well. We'll talk information. I usually provide your first couple classes free if that's a personal fitness or if it's a group fitness class. It is obviously, again, it's about financial compensation so I can pursue my dream more, but I have many different ways I can do that. I can easily do real estate a couple days a week and make money. I want to consume my life in the fight game. I want to be a fighter from the time I wake up and the time I go to sleep. I really, really, really want to give back. I come from a family of community and charity. I grown up doing 5,000 hours of community before graduating. That was a requirement from my mother. I want to give back. The prices for our rec program are pretty insane. Colorado is one of the meccas for wrestling. Talking to some of my friends that run some of these other programs, I know some of them cost up to like $10,000 a year, $1,000 a month. We do $500 intervals. It's $2,500 total. That provides your kid with all the equipment and stuff as well. So not only is it a bang for buck, but it's also a bang for what you're getting. I could easily be going and coaching high school. I could easily be going coaching a D3 program if I really wanted to. But I want to focus on youth. I want to build up my gym as well, build up Genesis Training Academy for how good of a gym it is. One gym I myself look at as a staple of what we want to be is a gym like you. We have a lot of killers. Our gym is known as an OG gym. A lot of guys from all across country and states, your gym sometimes even come and spar at our gym because it knows you can get some of the best rounds, some of the best minds of MMA. But one thing we need to build up is that smaller, that lesser community, maybe if that's a bad way to say it, but that next group, that next wave, we need to build that up, and I'm making that a fundamental requirement of myself over this next year. I'm going to go into high schools and middle schools all across the state and try and build this program up for what I think it really can be. I'm really, 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 really excited to doing that. So now, today my schedule was, I woke up, I did a 6-mile run with my dog. I did an hour of jiu-jitsu over at Catharos, which is another one of my base gyms and one of the best jiu-jitsu gyms in Denver and in Colorado, bar none. If you're in Littleton, if you're training here at Factory X, if you're training at Pound for Pound and you're not going to Catharos at least just once a week, you're crazy. It's one of those OG gyms. Doors are open all day, every day. Come whenever. There's no egos. There's no guys trying to take your arms, your limbs, your neck off ever. The level of skill there is absolutely absurd. Steve Hordinsky, who's a head coach and operator there, Gracie Black Belt is honestly one of the most intelligent minds of practical MMA-based jiu-jitsu. The way we can implement certain things into the fight game, where it's just been revolutionary over there. And he has kids programs and stuff like that I also want to promote and stuff like that. And then now we're here. We're talking MMA and fighting for the next couple hours, and after that, I have 3 hours of privates with some of my best clients. So I have no opportunity to get away from this at this point. Now I'm consumed in the lifestyle, and that's another way I've made myself more of a pro. I've realized when it comes to doing the privates, when I'm teaching these mainly men, young age to middle-aged men that are coming to me for several different reasons. Man, one, it's the most physically and mentally draining part of my day, period. Secondly, it's the most physically, maybe, but definitely mentally rewarding part of my day. And going into that last fight, I remember one of the things I was so confident about was, one, the training I was doing, but the classes I was doing, just going back and teaching fundamentals all day long, just cleans your fundamentals up so good. Mm-hmm. And especially in this fight game, especially at the level I'm at, when I'm building my professional career right now, it's about the fundamentals, right? I have a lot of funky, weird stuff that I love to do. I love question marks. I love Superman punches. I love hitting weird takedowns. But the fundamentals are what's going to get me to where I want to be, so I can start doing that stuff. So it's been so rewarding for me and things like that. And kind of a side tangent and just talk about myself a little bit more. One of the biggest things, again, I think is very important in fighting. And one thing I think is exciting with what the UFC is doing with signing with the company that owns WWE, is I hope the UFC, and I know there's not going to be any cross promoting or anything like that, but I hope UFC gets a little bit more into branding, more into it. And they're a mecca. They're a huge company, so for them to do it's hard. But
see, I don't see it going by that way because they've gone the route of the NFL where it's
Right.
more about the shield than
exactly,
it is
exactly.
the
Which
individuality.
it should be. But I think at the same time,
I think though that this is my take on why it's that way though, because you have guys like Ari Shafir in public, but you have
it doesn't smell because my diet's so good.
situations like Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor,
Right.
who in the past they gave so much power to or built so
Right,
much on,
right.
then once they decide to step away
Yeah.
or want to
It's-
do other
it's
things,
Gone.
then they're kind of left there with nothing but their nuts in their hand in the process. So I feel like
That's a
building
building I
up-
saw with ONE FC. It's for the fighters. The fighters just dictate everything.
Right.
All fight week, they're like, oh, we're going to change the time to this. Oh, I'm not coming there. I'm not riding the bus to this. And they're just like, okay. Letting people come during the back to say hi to their friends, which is against commission. Commission just sitting there like not knowing what to do. But you can't do that when you're that big of a promotion like the UFC. It's not feasible. But at the same time, all those guys like Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, they push so big, so fast. Again, those are some of the best athletes we've had in the sport. Sean O'Malley is one of the best we've had in the sport, but we didn't know that at the beginning. But they pushed him like that from the very get-go.
Right.
And again, you can't, and this is something that Dana White talks about. You guys got to promote yourself. We're giving you a huge platform to build yourself, but we're not going to send you across the world and the country like we are some other fighters to every single event to put you on TV and put you on things so you can brand it. You need to brand yourself. And I think that's one thing that separates me from a lot of people around me in the regional scene and where I'm at as a 1-0 pro fighter is one, I have an awesome group of sponsors supporting me on a financial standpoint to give me the opportunity to train like a professional am. But again, like what I said before, I don't think necessarily, I think I am one of the best 25ers. I think I'm getting better every day. And I think I could be one of the best 25ers in the world. But if I'm a boring draw, that's not going to get me to the UFC. I don't think I'm a boring draw. I know from my very first fight when you commentated me, you're talking about, my energy all week long, what I brought in before the fight and anything like that. I am a personality. I have a unique personality. I'm quirky. I'm fun. I understand the fight game very, very well. I have a great fight IQ. I think outside my tangible qualities of my physical attributes, I think one of the biggest things I have going for me is my mouth, my ability to talk and sell myself and things like that. And a little side tangent, like, again, the people that I need to know me, they know me, and we know what we need to do to get to where I want to go and things like that. And we have a goal of being 4-0 or 5-0 and fighting on Dana White Contender Series or taking a contract with ONE FC. But I've been told by certain promotions that you can't use a Super Jew name. We don't want to use the Super Jew name. There's been certain announcers that won't say it in my fight and stuff like that. And I think that's just absolutely absurd because one, it's like you want us to promote ourselves as individuals and not sell fake. And that's one of the biggest issues. Most times when the guys try to sell themselves, they do it in a fake way and it doesn't look organic and natural and it doesn't work. Guys like Jorge Masvidal just does it naturally. It works so well. Guys like Nate Diaz. I think I'm one of those guys, but like you can't stop branding. You can't try to turn away branding, especially where my heritage, my culture is very, very important to me. My nickname is very important to me. It is a part of who I am and things like that. At the same time, if UFC comes knocking and says, hey, we'll sign you tomorrow, take away that nickname, I'm probably not going to be the Super Jew tomorrow, right? But I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've had that conversation. I thought, and it's not necessarily the UFC that is the one saying it, but I said maybe I'll just go a different route and, take stake in my own name and try to sell how I want to.
Winning solves things.
Yeah. And
that would be,
goes.
me on the outside, just having a good grip on the game or having a lot of experience across the board. Those little things like that winning takes care of a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Winning washes over a lot of stuff. You know,
it's like
one of my boys, Brandon Raw Dog Royval,
Yep.
he always thought that once he got to the big show, he'd probably have to
cut his name.
switch.
I remember
But then having Bruce Buffer in front of an entire packed house and speaking to the millions and millions of people watching at home, saying Raw Dog over it, and
I never
being
really realized what his nickname that's his nickname basically. Man, I kind of associate to something else, but that's really hilarious that is that.
But yeah, that's just the thought or what some people would perceive
from
that. But
force them to accept me.
But when you come in on like 10 days notice, you fight Tim Elliott, who was a top 10 guy, or has been a perennial top 10 guy all the time.
Easiest bet I've ever made, by the way.
Goes in there, finishes him.
Easiest bet I've ever made.
Goes out.
Arm triangle.
That was the arm triangle that goes out and obliterates Kai Kara France. So I mean, winning takes care of a lot.
I bet on you every single time. Brandon Val. I think it's absurd that he was he a plus going into that last fight against
against Nico, like
that was absurd. They had him at, man, that was the easiest money I've made in a long time. Thank you, Brandon Val. I should have put it out. I should have done I thought he was going to finish him too, but I had to be safe, but
that's the uncrowned champ right now.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've decided. It's like, you know what, like basically force them to love me kind of thing. And again, success winning is what makes that a lot easier, right? It's like what's Camo Schwartz's name?
Bryce Mitchell.
Bryce Mitchell. It's like he's kept yelling for it and he got it. Winning. He got it. And now what's happened to him the last year has been really interesting. I'm really excited to see what he does in his next fight back, coming off his first loss.
Hopefully this injury isn't too significant, that he just had to pull out for. So.
Yeah, shoulder and thing, whatever. Yeah. That's what most people think it was shoulder.
That's what it was reported as.
Yeah. But
shoulder, back, something to that effect. Yeah, we're definitely running down on the tape side of things here. But just real quick before we cut out, what is where can people follow you on social media?
So Super Jew _MMA. Find me there. You can direct message me on there as well for any class information. I'm very chill. I'm very, come when you want, check it out, see how you feel. If it's not a fit for you and it's not a fit for everybody, I've turned down clients that want to continue to do it. But I want to build that up. So please reach out to me for that. Come just walk in at Genesis Training Academy, basically any time of the day. We're open almost like 24 hours a day from like 9:30 till 8:30. We're there. So 12 hours a day, not 24 hours a day, obviously. But one, I just want to say, dude, thanks again for taking this interview, helping build my brand, helping build the regional brand, helping build your gym up. What you've been doing for your gym has been crucial to their success. I hope they know that. I hope they support you in a way that you should be. I want to say thank you to my coaches, Steve Rodinsky, Jacob Ramos, Art, who's taken over as my manager recently. He's the one who's been finding these awesome fights. It's hard to get fights for me. It's been insane. I've had insane amount of guys pulling out and stuff like that. And, you spend a lot of money in camps and travels and things like that and getting MRIs and this like that. And to get people pull out is just, it's rough. So I'm happy to have him. And man, I'm really, 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 really happy to see where the regional fight scene in Colorado is going. I came here 5 years ago and I was blown away how good it was. And 5 years later, it's gotten so good. I love what Colorado Combat Club's doing. I love just that last card. I remember even the first 3 fights, guys are 0-0 amateur bouts looking insanely good and crisp. It scared me. I'm like, man, I gotta get right back in the gym and get to work with these kids. It's scary what's coming up. But yeah, just thank you for the opportunity, man. Thanks for listening. If you tuned in all the way through, I really appreciate it. I want to share my story more. I want to build this up. I want to help people with my fight game. I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for the fame. Although I do want money and fame for it. I have an ego I want to feed. I'm in it to keep myself here every day. I'm here to help people keep themselves here every day. And I want to build a community that we can be proud of here. So, and you're part of that. And that's why I'm here. And I look forward to the next conversation, next post win, whatever it is,
Absolutely, my friend. And that is Micah Haas, ladies and gentlemen. We want to give a quick shout out on the outro to a couple of our sponsors here. That's www.mmatees.shop. Make sure that you go there, pick up some gear. Also, JockoFuel.store. If you use the code MMA plug in the checkout, you will have 10% off anything within the catalog there. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you follow me along on social media, you know that is at Comments for the Peanut Gallery. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Love you guys.
Thank you, my man.
Good shit. That's fun.
Thank you so much for watching. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. That helps us continue to produce this original MMA content and bring it for you every single week.